The topic of this lesson is differences in development between countries. In this lesson, we will consider the features of a developing country and factors responsible for differences in living standards between countries. What is economic development? It is an increase in the standard of living within a country. It may also be defined as a rise in welfare or well-being of a country's citizens. Economic development is not the same as economic growth. Economic growth is a quantitative measure, and it is the rise in an economy's output. Economic development, on the other hand, goes beyond quantitative variables and includes qualitative measures that raise living standards. These qualitative measures include improved access to education and healthcare, reduced poverty level and income inequality, and freedom. What are the features of a developing country? A developing country has low living standards or quality of life, while a developed country has high living standards or quality of life. We will explain some features of developing economies. Number 1. Poor infrastructure. Developing or underdeveloped countries lack the physical amenities that can enhance the quality of life, e.g., good roads, railways, airports, proper sewage system, adequate water supply, and good communication network. Number 2. Population grows at a high rate due to high birth rate. Number 3. Developing countries are characterized by low average income or low income per head. Number 4. Poor healthcare, which results in high mortality rate and low life expectancy. Mortality rate is the number of deaths per 1,000 of the population in a given period, usually a year. Mortality rate is also known as death rate. Mortality rate is high due to poor healthcare system, poor sanitation and poverty. Low life expectancy means that the number of expected years of individuals is low. Number 5. Poor educational system. There is less access to quality education, and the average number of years spent in school is low. Number 6. High infant mortality. Infant mortality rate is the ratio of the number of children under 1 year dying, compared to the total number of live births in a year. This has to do with access to good health care. Number 7. Poverty. A lot of people in the country cannot afford basic necessities, such as food, clothing and shelter. Number 8. Developing countries have few industries producing high-quality products. Number 9. The primary sector is responsible for most jobs, e.g., agriculture, crude oil exploration, etc. Number 10. Developing countries are often bedeviled by corruption and political instability. Public office holders use their offices to enrich themselves rather than work for the good of all. This can lead to embezzlement of funds meant for developmental projects. Corruption can cause staffing schools, hospitals and other offices with unqualified candidates. This can lead to political instability such as military takeover or coups. We want to consider why there are differences in the level of development between countries. The first factor is differences in income. The average income as measured by GDP per capita is higher for more developed economies than less developed economies. GDP per capita is GDP divided by population. Low GDP, or high population growth in developing countries, is responsible for low GDP per capita. Low income level leads to poverty and low quality of life, such as poor nutrition and lack of access to healthcare. However, GDP does not account for income inequality, pollution, nature of goods produced, and environmental damage. Differences in productivity levels lead to differences in economic development. Productivity is a measure of the amount of output that can be derived from a given amount of input. A productive country produces more output from its resources, such as labor. Developed economies tend to be more productive, as they often have access to modern technologies and quality education systems. Infrastructural development also increases productivity and attracts foreign direct investment, FDI. Differences in population growth. Population growth is higher in less developed economies than more developed economies. High population growth limits development, as it reduces the GDP per capita, or average income. The pressure to take care of the high population will reduce the resources available for developmental projects. The primary sector employs more people than any other sector in less developed countries. Primary sector extracts raw materials and natural resources, e.g., agriculture, mining, and crude oil exploration. As the economy develops, the secondary sector employs more people due to industrialization. The secondary sector is concerned with manufacturing and construction. More development will make tertiary sector the dominant sector employing the highest number of persons. Tertiary sector provides services such as banking, transportation, etc. Primary sector is the major contributor to the GDP of a less economically developed country, LEDC, while tertiary sector accounts for the highest percentage of the GDP of a more economically developed country, MEDC. Saving and investment. Savings provide money for banks to give to businesses for investment. People save less money in less developed countries because they have low incomes. They can hardly meet their basic needs, let alone save money in banks. Therefore, the savings ratio tends to be low in these countries. Savings ratio is the proportion of people's income that is saved. Low savings ratio implies that banks do not have enough money to give for investments which promote development, for example, creating more jobs, and providing tax revenue for quality education and healthcare. Savings ratio tends to be high in developed economies due to high income level. The graph shows the UK household saving ratio between 2014 and 2023. It fluctuated over the period. The uncertainty associated with COVID-19 made people to save more and spend less of their incomes. This was why the saving ratio rose from 5.5% in 2019 to 16.6% in 2020. Differences in education. Education is one of the indicators of economic development. In more economically developed economies, children spend more years in schools. The adult literacy rate is also higher than what is obtainable in less economically developed economies. For example, the adult literacy rate in the UK is almost 100%. This indicates that nearly all adults in the UK can read and write. Level of education impacts living standards. A low level of education means fewer skills to get a good income to improve a person's standard of living. Differences in healthcare. Better healthcare improves the quality of life. Developed economies have a high life expectancy and low mortality rate due to better healthcare. Life expectancy is the average number of years a person is expected to live, while mortality rate is the number of deaths per 1,000 people. Less developed economies have poor healthcare, low life expectancy, and high mortality rates.